The Feed Bandit Podcast, Episode 5, The Basics of Using Deer Feed. Howdy, and welcome back to the Feed Bandit Podcast, where our goal is to entertain while talking hunting and learning about the sport we love right alongside you. With this podcast, we also want to do what we can to support small and family-owned businesses and entrepreneurs in the hunting space wherever possible. We believe they're the lifeblood of our economy and of our communities, and hope that you agree with us about the importance of lending our support. If you are a small business, a feed store, a gear inventor, or entrepreneur in the hunting space and would like to get more exposure to potential customers by being featured on the Feed Bandit podcast, please let us know. Go to feedbandit.com/promote and drop us a line. We'd love to discuss what we can do for you and your business. Again, that is feedbandit.com/promote. And for you fellow hunters out there, do you want special access to new and innovative hunting gear? Well, if so, we're in the process of putting together an exclusive collection of small businesses and entrepreneurs in the hunting space to bring our community the best, newest, and most innovative products available. Limited access will be granted through our email list, so be sure to join the hunt. When you join, you will get a special gift, and that is our free ebook of unique hunting tips and tricks for both beginning and experienced hunters. So don't miss out, and be sure to join the hunt at feedbandit.com/join. Again, that's feedbandit.com/join. Well, howdy, everybody, and welcome back to the Feed Bandit podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Byrne, and I'm joined by my esteemed compadre, Richard Kinchlow. How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. Howdy to the Feed Bandit podcast following folks out there.
Indeed, indeed. So I think today we wanted to start a discussion about the basics of deer feed or supplemental feeding for deer. I say start a discussion because this is, as you know, is a pretty large topic that we will probably come back to from different angles in future podcasts. And you guys listening can find out a lot of this basic material that we'll be covering on our blog at feedbandit.com/feedbasics. So today we just wanted to go over really the absolute basics, though, since we're coming up on deer hunting season and where we hunt in Texas, we're allowed by our wise overlords to put out feed for the supplemental feeding of deer pretty much more or less without restriction. But as a quick aside along those lines, one thing that I found interesting is when I put together another blog that we did that lists the feed regulations for all 50 states. There is a plethora of different laws on the books, totally across the board. You know, the regulations are everywhere from the Texas-style freedom to do what you want, more or less, all the way to absolute and total bans. So everyone listening out there, if you're not in a state like Texas, be sure to take out some time to check out that blog at feedbandit.com/regs. That's REGS, and entertain yourself with the wide variety of laws on the state books. And we can do, if you want, future podcasts just discussing some of the more interesting and odd laws that are out there. And maybe we could do a little research to find out the history of why some of those regulations are the way they are.
Yeah, but, I would venture a guess to say that some of the laws the reason the regulations are what they are because of some dummy in some suit and tie or fancy dress that decided, this will help prevent the deer from being killed. Right.
Yeah. I'm sure there's some interesting stories behind some of that stuff. I don't know if you ever saw that show on the History Channel about like how the states got their shapes.
Oh yeah.
Great show. It's like. Some of the stories behind that is just, you'd never guess that's why some of that stuff happened. So I'm really interested to look into that. So maybe we'll talk about that in the future. But anyway, my whole point in saying all that was, we're going to be talking about it really from our perspective of hunting here in Texas, which I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's probably the most, and I use this word the correct way it should be used, the most liberal. Right. As far as allowing you to feed for deer. So anyway, Spitz, let's jump into it. Where do you want to start? What is deer feed? What is feeding?
Yeah. Well, that's the very basic. So, yeah, deer feed is a wide variety of different things. You've got everything from just regular dried corn, which is obviously what we feed a lot of here in the state of Texas out of corn feeders, also out of free choice feeders, and we'll talk about that down the road. We've also got the deer protein pellets, okay, and they come in kind of a variety of different ingredients. Some have got 20% crude protein, some are 16% crude protein. I've actually heard from one biologist here in the state that a deer can't even really digest anything over 16% crude protein, so maybe the 20% is just a marketing thing. Who knows? But it can be anything from those two items to to salt licks, to dried mineral. It could be a mix of corn and seeds, such as some of the stuff that we've actually demoed before for people at the place that we hunt. So really deer feed can be of a wide variety of different things, to also include fruit. I know that in some of the more climate tolerant states, they have apple trees and peach trees and whatnot that the deer absolutely pummel. And then, of course, you've got going on more of the natural feed for deer. You've also got the types of crops that you can grow for them. Down here in Texas during deer season, which, by the way, opening of bow season is this weekend. So good luck to everybody here in the state, October 1. You've got winter wheat. Winter wheat's a big one for us down here. It grows real well naturally in the winter, and also it's really good to graze your cattle on, so long as it doesn't reach a certain temperature. That's a different story. But you've also got a whole bunch of different seed combinations that you can plant: chicory, peas, things of that nature, and you click on one of the three cable hunting shows. I mean, every other commercial is talking about a new seed blend or a mineral lick or something of that nature. So there is just a whole plethora of different products you can quote unquote serve to your deer. Also, something that we do, I just forgot about, kind of one of our core items that we feed is cottonseed. Mm-hmm. Cottonseed is really kind of been it's always been around naturally, but it's really become a real trendy product the past couple of years, and especially down here in Texas, people are absolutely feeding the heck out of it.
Why do you think it's become popular like that?
Right. I read a wide variety of things, but I think that the top couple of things is first of all, it's highly nutritious. It is sometimes significantly cheaper than your typical deer protein. Obviously, it's probably cheaper than corn. And it's obviously more nutritious than corn.
So it is cheaper than corn.
Yeah, it is definitely cheaper than corn. I've also heard that in some cases the hogs, we have wild pigs in Texas, as do a lot of the other states, but we got them bad here. The pigs won't really mess with them. Typically, I've heard some people.
Wow, is that the only thing?
Right, yeah, exactly. But again, I've heard to some folks say, no, they got used to it. Now they're destroying it.
Of course.
Yeah,
they've adapted.
Oh, absolutely. They're the world's greatest adapter. Right. But I think another nice reason is because the cottonseed can actually get wet and it won't poof up to the size of a piece of bread. So it's just really simple to feed. So yeah, it's become pretty big.
Interesting. Yeah. So why would you want to do that? Like,
sure.
People might be wondering, well, I got deer on my land and,
right.
They've always been there. I see them every now and then. And I guess they're just eating what's out there. It's like, well, why do I want to go and spend money on some sort of feeding apparatus and then buy something to constantly put in there? It's just more cost for me. Like, so why would you want to do that?
Sure. And there are a couple of reasons why that, where legal, of course, that you would want to look at feeding deer. Not only deer, wild turkeys, anything really. A lot can benefit from feed. First of all, let's talk about, before you start, a feeding program, you got to understand that, corn and protein, deer protein pellets and cottonseed and things of that nature, is all going to be supplemental. Okay. We call it supplemental feed for a reason. If your deer are relying on the supplemental feed that no longer becomes supplemental, it becomes crucial. Okay. Something
primary.
They have to have. Primary. Right. So yeah, that's first and foremost, is that you want this to be supplemental feed and not 100% of their diet. Okay. And one way of telling that actually is, after a good rain, okay, if your feed consumption starts going down. For example, in the place that we hunt here in Texas, we had a horrible June. It was extremely dry, to the point where the grass and everything else was just deteriorating. So the deer were absolutely pounding our protein feeders. Well, sure enough, we got about 7 inches or so, and gradually we could see them stop hitting the feeders, and they were going back to the greenery. So that's obviously that's a great thing and a good thing to look at. But again, I kind of digress there. But the reason why you really want to feed, a couple of reasons. First and foremost, are you trying to grow big antlers? Okay. It is proven that some sorts of supplemental feeding, such as protein pellets, salt licks, cottonseed, things of that nature, will help a deer grow bigger antlers. Obviously, genetics, natural forage, range conditions are also absolutely key to growing a good set of antlers. But definitely protein and all that kind will definitely help him supplement when he's not getting naturally. Another reason why you might want to look at supplemental feeding for deer is to attract and hold deer. There are a lot of folks out there who hunt on smaller tracts of land, be it 20 acres, 30 acres, 100 acres, or even less. One of the big problems that you get is, you've got all these, maybe smaller tracts of land, and, come deer season, they're all full of hunters. And the second that deer jumps the fence, guess what? He or she is going to be shot. Maybe that was the big buck you were looking for. Okay. So, supplemental feeding can definitely help, where legal, hold your deer there on the particular piece of property that you're wanting to be on.
Especially if you don't have a game fence or.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guy, when you talk about the dreaded high fence,
right.
That'll be another topic. But I think really the third reason why you might want a supplemental feed is really not so much for a hunting purpose, but for the fact that it's just darn entertaining. One of the things that we've written about before, I think in one of our blogs, is having a house feeder. Okay. Again, here in Texas, we're allowed, as Jimmy said, to liberally feed as much as we want to. So during the winter and spring and summer, we have a house feeder that's, 300 or 400 yards away from the house, and we set it to go off in the early morning after we wake up with a sore head. And then in the evening towards dusk, it's just so we can watch the deer, and not only the deer, but the turkeys, in this particular place we hunt, we have exotic animals. So, it's just a lot of fun. So those are kind of my.
Sit out there with a nice cocktail and a cigar, and
absolutely
watch the animals roam.
I wish I was there right now, no doubt. So, but in my opinion, those are kind of one of the 3 reasons why you'd want to look at supplemental feeding.
Okay, all right. So you sort of alluded to this earlier in talking about what feed is, and really here, why would you want to feed? But maybe dive into a little more how important it is to kind of actually take the time to take stock in your land's current inventory of food sources. It's really important to know what is out there and how much is out there, really, and kind of understand. In good times, how much could be out there, and then in drought times, how much is lacking out there, and kind of get an idea of what your land actually produces itself, because it can kind of guide why and how much probably that you do supplemental feed. So
totally agree.
Yeah, what are those things that maybe the main things I guess that people should pay attention to and really look out for
right
what they're currently eating out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, range conditions are an absolutely huge factor in determining how many deer, can be held on your property, and then what kind of deer, as far as, quality of deer. So it's really important to always be evaluating what's going on your piece of property. It is particularly difficult if you're in a leasing situation, because typically, if you're looking at a rancher, his or her income is going to be based off of, well, you got the hunting, okay, and that's what you're paying to the rancher, but it's also going to be livestock too, most likely. Here in Texas, obviously cattle is king. So we have a situation where we've got cattle out there, and during the hard times, it's tough for ranchers to rotate their cattle properly sometimes. So sometimes you're getting a situation where they're eating those pastures down to bare bones. Now, with that being said, cattle actually really don't compete with white-tailed deer, because cattle are grazers. White-tailed deer are browsers. So cattle will eat grass, whereas the white-tailed deer will eat forbs, broadleaf forbs, weeds, acorns, leaves, things of that nature. But definitely looking at your range conditions is absolutely huge. One thing that you can do to, if you really don't know what you're looking at, but you can really go on to any of the state's websites and probably type in, say like if you're in Kentucky, you can go on to Kentucky Natural Conservation, whatever. And they'll probably have a list of the white-tailed deer's favorite foods in Kentucky. And you can print those pictures out, and talk about something fun to do with your kids. Go out there in your ATVs or on foot and see if you can find those things. Look at them at different times of year, see if they're being pursued by whitetails. And obviously if it says, well, the so-and-so plant is really the Kentucky whitetail's favorite deer food for the winter. If you're starting to see that being eaten in summer, well, then maybe you've got an issue. Then maybe you want to ratchet up your supplemental feeding program. Another thing you can do is take advantage of your local biologists. Here in Texas, we've got multiple biologists that are assigned to the counties. And obviously they're extremely busy, but we've had them out to the place that we hunt multiple times. And they're very knowledgeable about the particular area and the range conditions, and they can say, they can tell you what's going on. So it's always important to keep your eyes open and look what's going on. Obviously the same thing was with water. Okay. Water is obviously a really big factor here in the state of Texas. So, we really watch our water sources, and we will supplement water too. In fact, I know we did a couple of videos on that, which we'll be getting up shortly. And I think we did a blog on that, or we need to be doing one. I just haven't done it yet. So yeah,
well, it's a process, right?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. Yeah. Yeah, so
still in little research phase. But
definitely. Yeah, the point is get out there on your property. Okay, don't just be a seasoned hunter. Get kind of any opportunity. This is me personally, and I know you feel the same way, Jimmy. Any opportunity you get to get out of this concrete, do it. Get out there, get involved, understand it. I hate to say it, be one with the animals, be one with their environment, and the better you know their environment. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, the more you're out there and just walking around and, getting a feel of the land and everything like that, it's, I don't know, there's something about it that, makes you more comfortable, makes you feel like you understand what's going on. You can also start paying attention and seeing deer tracks and, lanes and all these type of things that if all you do is you go fill the feeder and then sit in the blind and never do anything around it, it's you miss out on probably
Absolutely.
3/4 at least of the whole experience of getting to know your land. Seeing what that setup looks like from the other angle, not just from where the blind can be interesting.
Oh yeah,
little things like that.
Absolutely, man.
So
absolutely,
I agree. So I got a question for you.
Sure.
If you had to choose, and I don't know if you can, this might be a loaded question, food plot or feeder, which can you say, or is it just depends?
Well, you know, I
know I kind of put you on the spot there.
Yeah,
no,
I like it.
I like
it. Honestly, I think it really depends on where you're at. And that's really bad grammar. But I think it depends on what part of the country you're in. For example, folks down the Texas Hill Country, boy, they would love to put in the food plot. But the fact of the matter is, they exactly, yeah. You can't grow, you can't grow, luscious green little vegetables on top of rocks. So it's very difficult for them to do any sort of food plots. Then, of course, the opposite can be said by up in Throckmorton, up in, Shackelford County, Texas, where the soil is a lot more giving, lots of good deep soil, rich soil. You can certainly do food plots there. So I would think it's where you, it's what you can do. Obviously, the feeders are going to be a heck of a lot more reliable. Okay, you don't have to worry about the rain for your feeder to go off, right? And it's just probably a lot easier. But that's my opinion. I say that probably the final thought is that with the deer feeder, if you have a spin feeder, okay, so you can set it for various times and it'll spin. You can kind of dictate per se when the deer will appear. Of course, as we know, having a time spin feeder guarantees you nothing. But on occasion you will see, it does work. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Something to think about. Obviously, it's kind of like we've been saying. You got to take stock of the land as it is and see what it'll give you, and then you supplement that with basically what it's not giving you.
Absolutely, you bet.
So and the other
thing to remember, your range conditions are going to vary year after year.
That's right. Yeah.
I wish in a perfect world we had the consistent amount of rainfall, but we don't have it. You could have a fire. That's something we actually need to talk about. People freak out when they hear the word fire, and yeah, fire is bad in your house, but out there in the bush, it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah.
So and then just talk about from, I don't know, have you kind of figured out a general cycle, say down at Rancho Bandito, kind of how it goes from drought to abundance to back to drought again? I mean, it seemed like, I'm just pulling this out of my, from memory, but I don't know, something maybe every 3 or 4 years. Is that kind of what it's like? Or?
And I don't know who they are, but they say that it's every 5 years.
5 years.
5 years in a drought, and then of course the glass half empty folks say, 5 years in a drought and 6 months with rain. Which I don't know if that's true. But yeah, no, it can be pretty frustrating, pretty brutal.
Well, and the extremes of the extreme drought to the extreme lusciousness, that's a huge difference.
Oh, it's incredible.
what it does to the same piece of land in the same spot in the same state, it's just crazy. So it's I would just say maybe another interesting thing to do for people if they know they're gonna be on a piece of land for a long time, keep like a diary. That might be interesting. Say, hey, this year we had roughly this much rain at this time, and we had this much browse and whatever else.
Yep.
So you can kind of maybe see every year how your land is actually affected by the rain. And you can kind of maybe anticipate and see, well, since this happened, 5 years ago, it happened about this exact same way in the spring through the summer, and our deer hunting was like this at that time. Well, maybe I can anticipate it being like this time, and because of that, I might want to do something a little different, or I might want to,
Absolutely. Absolutely. In a nutshell, have a plan.
Yeah.
Have a plan.
Yep. All right. So we kind of jump around a little bit, but I want to jump right back to one thing, and that's browse management. The idea of going in there and trimming trees where they need to, or work on cover areas and that type of thing. You got anything to say about that?
Yeah, there are definitely certain things you can do that will that will increase natural feed for deer. One of the problems that a lot, and again, we always relate back to Texas, but one of the big issues we have in the state of Texas are they're called juniper trees, or we call them cedar trees.
Mm-hmm.
The cedar tree, of course, it was put on this earth for a reason. The cedar tree does serve as pretty decent cover. But the problem is with cedar trees, when they get too big, and when I mean too big, I'm talking about a foot is when they start becoming a problem, is that the foliage on them are so dense and it's so dark underneath there that nothing can grow. Okay. So the problem is you start to get these horrible cedar thickets, and you're basically just looking at dead earth. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. How once they get in your property and they can really take over. So to your point, what can we do to help the range conditions? Because that's really what we're doing here. And it's not only for the deer, it's for the turkey too, and for the other critters. Well, we can get in there and we can remove these cedar trees. And by removing these cedar trees, cutting them, stacking them, and burning them, we are creating more browse for the deer. Okay, because when we get in there, we're going to be dealing with a clean piece of soil per se, right? Well, if we're using heavy equipment or even tire tracks, we're going to disturb that earth. When we disturb that earth, when we get some rainfall and some actual sunlight, guess what? Those seeds that have been stored under there, 20, 30, 200 years, they're going to come up. And then so we're going to be restoring it. So not only will it be good for the livestock, maybe some grass will come up, but can guarantee you some browse will come up for the deer. Something else that you can do that we've done several times in the place that we hunt, is you can actually get a tractor. If you don't have a tractor with a plow, you can actually get an ATV. Get an ATV with a heavy log or a big, maybe a railroad tie, something of that nature, and you can actually drive it through a pasture that's maybe maybe it's just dirt, okay, or maybe it's just some prairie grass or something of that nature. But you can drive through there with those, and it will actually disturb the earth, and it will bring up forbs. Quite literally, it's like you've created yourself kind of a natural food plot. So again, there's lots of different things you can do to kind of stimulate deer food, turkey, wildlife food, really, on your particular property. Again, you might want to check with your regular the laws to make sure you can't cut down this particular tree or something of that nature. In Texas, we can pretty much do as we please. You also might want to check with the landowner too. You never know; they could have an affection for cedar trees, and that's a good way of not getting asked back if you cut down a tree that they like.
Right. Yeah, those cedars can get out of control.
Oh, yep.
Not to mention what they do. Maybe you mentioned this to the water and the water table and all that.
No, that's very true. Yeah. Yeah, no, and God, what's the statistic? I mean, something like 60
it's so
gallons.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
60 gallons a day those big turds drink. I mean, that is unbelievable. So they are, from what I've heard, again, I'm not a biologist, but when I've heard, they are decimating the water table in the Texas Hill Country. And I think in Oklahoma as well. Oklahoma's got a big problem with them as well. They're literally taking over.
And they're not they're not native to this area either.
No, they're not. They're adapted. That's something we can ask our guest about.
That's right.
Future guest, but
we'll be announcing in a bit.
Absolutely,
a future podcast, I should say.
Absolutely, they are. I think they're what's called an adaptive species, kind of like Johnson grass, which that's another bane of my existence. But anyway, yeah. So there are things you can do, and again, talk about a great time of getting out there and doing this stuff is in the off season. It just gives you another excuse to get out there with a pair of loppers, with a chainsaw, and making a difference.
And it'll make your place. It'll look like a new place.
Absolutely.
All right. I think maybe just the last thing is just if you mind, give people an idea, kind of what we're doing at like Rancho Bandito as far as like when to on average or typically start feeding corn and protein and when and during the year, and even cottonseed, that type of stuff.
Sure, yeah. Really, when, where, how, what, all that kind of fun stuff really just depends on, it depends on what are your goals, okay? It also depends a lot on your range conditions. Oh, and not to mention budget, okay?
Yeah,
big
factor.
Money. Yeah, I got a money tree in my backyard here, so I don't have to worry about that, right? But no, of course that's not true. I wish it was. Be talking on the gold microphone right now if it was the case. But
yeah, I think Rush Limbaugh has the golden microphone.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, it really depends on all of those factors. But on the place that we hunt, we typically, again, depending on the range conditions, all that kind of fun stuff, we will typically get our corn feeders fired up. Actually, right about now, we will get them filled right now. In the state of Texas, the traditional opening day of deer season is the first weekend of November. Bow season opens up on October 1. There is a special program for the state of Texas called Managed Land Deer Permits. The place that we hunt is on that program, so we can actually start shooting, I believe it's October 1 as well. So we have gotten the corn feeders up and running. Corn feeders, corn in general, does not provide any sort of real nutritional value for the deer. It is a starch, so it does provide some, I'm told, some energy, okay? But really, the corn feeders are there to help us judge the deer that we're looking at to make sure that we're harvesting a proper deer. Once again, I digress. As far as protein is concerned, when do we get that going? Well, first and foremost, we've got corn feeders, okay? They're about 1,000 pounds and they spin. We have them on clocks, per se, timers. And then we've also got 2,000 pound gravity feeders, okay? So they're typical gravity feeders where the feed falls down to these tubes and the deer can eat as they please. We will typically start feeding protein in January or earlier if conditions are saying we really need to. Again, we're going to be doing that because the bucks are coming out of the rut. The does have been run ragged. It's quote unquote cold, and it depends what kind of winter we get in Texas. But the protein is really a big pick-me-up for them, okay? And we'll keep that going through the antler dropping season, to the antler growing season. We always talk about the bucks when it comes to protein, but the does are important too. The does will start having fawns, they help with their milk production. And so anyways, we'll keep the protein going till about August or so. And depending on the range conditions, okay, if we start to get some rain, for example, this year, it was a pretty rough August until the end of August. Then we end up getting like 7 inches, so we basically cut off the protein. No more protein for the year. The bucks are shedding their velvet. The does are most of their fawns are weaned, so they really are not going to be getting a lot from the protein. If it was a severe drought, if the drought continued, sure, we would keep it going just to help them out. Cottonseed is kind of the same program as protein. And one of the reasons why we feed protein or we feed cottonseed is that it is very nutritious. It's inexpensive. There's a little bit more labor in putting it out there. We'll actually show a picture of that one down the road. And the kids love to play in it, by the way, which is kind of fun. Again, getting kids involved in any aspect of the outdoor lifestyle is absolutely crucial. Or 20, 30 years from now, we won't be doing this. Digressed again. As far as mineral and stuff is concerned, we'll put that out really all times of the year. We actually do put out salt as well. We typically put out salt typically after spring green up. Apparently, I can't remember who I heard this from, or I think I read it too from biologists, but apparently the deer will actually travel multiple miles looking for, a natural salt lick. Oh. So they absolutely
kind of like me.
crave. Yeah, exactly. Golly. Yeah, so they crave salt because of all the greenery that they're eating. Apparently is something with their kidneys. Again, I'm no PhD, all right, but so we put salt out, and guess what? They end up pounding it. Mm-hmm. So again, we really spoil them. We give away free vaccinations if they stand still, but of course they don't. So it's a lot of fun. We also do put out some alfalfa from time to time. We do have axis deer on this place that we hunt. The axis deer, they love alfalfa, but we'll talk about those guys on another segment.
Yeah, we'll have probably an exotic podcast that might be interesting.
That is a delicious idea.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm. I guess just the last thing is, where should our fellow hunters find deer feed? Buy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we really subscribe, as do a lot of people in the state of Texas. And of course, I'm sure this is USA wide, but we really subscribe, as you've heard from the opening of our podcast every time, really purchasing, from the mom and pop businesses. Okay. The small town businesses and whatnot. Okay, that's something that's very near and dear to our hearts. These small towns, especially in the state of Texas, and again probably elsewhere, they are the backbone of the hunting industry in the state of Texas. So we really like to support them. One of the things that we have coming out on the Feed Bandit website is going to be a search mechanism that's going to allow folks, especially in the state of Texas, to actually do some research as to the best price of feed and other hunting supplies en route to their lease or to their land or to their ranch or farm or whatever you want to call it, so that they can, instead of going to the big box stores per se, right? They can patronize the, if I said that word correctly, the small, the mom and pop entrepreneurs, the small town feed stores. So that's very exciting to us. That's something that is extremely near and dear to our heart. Small town Texas has always been a big thing for me, and I've always actually wanted to find a way to somehow support small town Texas to bring it back, because some of these communities aren't doing really well. And let me tell you, hunting is the way to do it. Mm-hmm. And it's an exciting thing. So be looking for that. We'll obviously have a big announcement down the road when we're ready to do all that fun stuff.
Absolutely. And if you want a kind of a sneak peek, a special look into what we're talking about here as far as that search mechanism goes on the website, just go to the blog that we've been talking about today, feedbandit.com/feedbasics, and read through that blog, and you can find a link towards the end that will take you to essentially what we have. It's in beta phase right now, so we're testing it out, still building it out, trying to get the tweaks out, but making sure it's going to be valuable to everybody. So if you're listening to this podcast, you got some inside information there to kind of check something out hadn't been released yet to the general public. So we're happy to let you guys take a look at it. So is that all? Anything else you want to add to the conversation?
I think that's probably it. We could go on and on and on, but okay. Unfortunately, it's got to stop somewhere. Yeah. So I think we're good for now.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Different things, different things more in the future, and we'll just see how it evolves. So, all right, that's great stuff. So again, everyone, you can find a lot of this material that we talked about today on our blog at feedbandit.com/feedbasics. If you're interested in reading more about the topic, that's feedbandit.com/feedbasics. If you like what you get here and want more, and you like special access to new and innovative hunting gear, just a reminder to join the hunt at feedbandit.com/join, where you'll get access to our free ebook of unique hunting tips and tricks. So again, that's at feedbandit.com/join to join the hunt. And just as a reminder to all the small businesses, feed stores, gear inventors, or entrepreneurs out there in the hunting space, if you'd like to get more exposure to potential customers by being featured on the Feed Bandit podcast, please let us know. Go to feedbandit.com/promote and drop us a line there. We'd love to discuss what we can do for you and your business. That's feedbandit.com/promote. And so thank you, Spitz, today for showing us the way on feed. And thanks everyone else out there. And remember, support your local feed store.